If you have struggled to grow poppies, you're not alone. They are tricky to establish. Once established, they self-sow brilliantly for years to come, and it's such a joy. But here are some keys to establishing them, because it is not as simple as it may seem. And welcome to Live Q&A. This is Petra here at Fruition Seeds, where the snow has, oh my gosh, just finally melted and the birds are returning. And happy spring, by the way. Today is the spring equinox. Equal days light, equal days dark, and what a joy it is. We will only have more light in the days until September, friends. And what a great joy. So let's dive right in. I love to begin all of our live Q&As with a song, story, poem, with something. And this morning, I would love to begin with silence. That actually won't be very silent. I hope you can hear the killdeer flying by, the blue jays, the bluebirds singing spring, the blackbirds losing their minds. So let's just listen and take in the spring unfurling. So beautiful. So yes, welcome. This is Live Q&A, and I'm so excited to share with you some keys of establishing poppies in your life. Not hard, but deceptively easy. And then we'll dive deep into all of your questions, friends. So if you want to establish poppies, I don't blame you. There are so many different kinds of poppies, and these are tips for the Poppies somniferum poppies. You'll find the genus species on the back of all of our packets, and they are some of the most beautiful and most diverse, and they're also one of the more tricky to establish. But it's not hard. You just need to know this. They want to establish in the cold soil. If you're establishing them, planting them for here in Zone 5 around Memorial Day, it's too late. If the soil is too warm, they're going to be stressed. They're not going to establish well. So that's honestly the key. You can direct sow or transplant them. If you transplant them, I personally love to transplant them. If I only have a packet, I'm going to transplant them because I want every single of those 50 seeds to be surrounding me with glorious abundance. If I have cups and cups of I'm saving my own seeds and I have so many, then I just go and sprinkle them all over the place because less of them are going to establish. So if you have tons of seeds, by all means direct sow. And if you only have a packet and you only want to direct sow, by all means, I'll show you how to. But if I generally tend to transplant, if I simply have one packet and I want them to surround me with great abundance. So we transplant them, we start them indoors 4 weeks, wait for it, 8 weeks before final frost. So we're transplanting them out 4 weeks before it frosts. So essentially 2 months before final frost, we're starting them indoors. For us here in Zone 5, we'll be starting these at the beginning of May. And then once they have a set of true leaves, about 4 weeks later, we're setting them outside for about a week to harden off, to acclimate to life outside, and then we are planting them direct in the garden. So yes, it's much earlier. I think that's the same amount of time that's the same strategy for broccoli. If you're transplanting arugula or broccoli rabe, cauliflower, or even Brussels sprouts, that's that same starting them. They're only about a 4-week-old transplant, and we're starting them 8 weeks before final frost, and they're totally cold hardy and love to establish in that cold, especially the broccoli. So we're planting them out 4 weeks before frost, and yay, then they just are so easy to grow, and you're like, wait, this isn't hard. But if you're trying to establish them in cool and warm soil, it just is hard. There's no way around it. If you do want to direct sow your poppies, you can do so honestly now, once the snow melts, and if you have a nice open piece of soil. And then you can also be planting them up until about 3-4 weeks before final frost. I personally like to err on the later side, and here's why. So all seeds germinate at a range of temperatures, and the colder the temperature, the longer it will take, the farther away from optimum germination temperature, the longer it will take for that seed to germinate. Peas, for example, can germinate at 40 degrees, they can germinate at 80 degrees. And so at 80 degrees, they're going to be germinating in like 2 days. At 40 degrees, they're going to be taking like 3+ weeks to germinate. So keep in mind that just because they will germinate at cold temperature soils, they will take their time to actually emerge, and lots of weed seeds are germinating all around them that have been evolving to germinate really quickly in cold temperatures too. So even though it's tempting to sow a lot of seeds really early, direct sown, and we do, keep in mind that sometimes holding off a few weeks can mean that planting into those slightly warmer temperature soils can mean that your seeds will germinate that much more quickly. You'll do that much less weeding and be surrounded by that much more abundance. So yes, there are some keys with poppies, my friends, and I'm so delighted to share. Growing poppies is one of my favorite delights, and honestly, although we're always planting some every year to save seeds in very intentional rows and beds, I love around our home, we just sprinkle them and let them self-sow, and for years they just pop up and they self-sow in the most gentle, magical way, dotting themselves across our landscapes. And I hope the same will be the true for you as well. So let's dive in. This is live Q&A, and good morning, Petra. Good morning, Sarah. Happy spring equinox. Yes. And I've never been successful of growing poppies or ranunculus. Yes, well, I hope that some of the tips that I just gave you for growing poppies will surround you with abundance. You'll also find some tips in our Seed Starting Academy. And it's time for a shameless plug. If you didn't already know, we have our free Seed Starting Academy. We made it free a year ago at the beginning of the pandemic because we realized we need this information. We need all this information more than ever. And we are all epically losing resources in our world and our lives. And let's just be as generous as we possibly can to meet this moment. So we made our online courses free. So you'll find lots of detailed step-by-step video tutorials on all kinds of things: indoor sowing, outdoor sowing, transplanting details, succession sowing, all kinds of great stuff. So you'll find a whole section on poppies and lots of great details there as well. And ranunculus, I personally don't really know how to grow ranunculus. It's true. I will send you to floretteflowers.com, where she has some great downloadable guides to set you up for ranunculus success. And Jill says, let's celebrate all of the birds. I love listening to them at any time of the year. Yes, it is so true. Getting to know all of the sounds of chickadees, they have such a wide vocal range. They don't just say chickadee-dee-dee, they say cheeseburger, and all kinds of delightful things. So I love listening to birds in all the seasons. Oh my gosh. And yes, when did the killdeer come back? Oh my gosh, let's take a peek. So check it out. Perhaps you've seen our perpetual calendar across the seasons. And so we take all kinds of notes, not just about gardening in it. And so as a perpetual calendar, it has all of these dates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But instead of Monday through Sunday, it has years. So here you can see March 2020. And killdeer returns on the 14th. So I'm taking notes in this calendar of, when we're sowing seeds, of course, and when we're harvesting, of course, and when Light Blight is in our county, of course. But lots of other things too, like when the first trilliums are blooming, and when the black-throated blue warbler returns, and all kinds of things. So we actually put on the calendar on the 9th this year. We've heard the first killdeer. I confess, just in the last few days, I've been hearing so many and seeing pairs of killdeer. And listen close, I'm sure they'll be flying over me and singing loud someday soon. So the sun is so bright, love spring. Yes, it is so delicious to be out here in the fields again with you friends. And so poppies would not like a warming mat to germinate. So yeah, interestingly, do not put your poppies on a warming mat. Save it for other things that actually want to be warmer. I'm so glad, Jill, that you asked. That is a wonderful observation. And do you leave them outdoors overnight when you are hardening off the poppies? Let's talk about hardening off. So hardening off is this period of kind of acclimating your transplants to life outside in the big dynamic world where there's breezes, there are gales, there's rain, there's temperature shifts, where your kitchen or wherever you're starting your seeds, it's probably toasty warm and really flatline consistent conditions. So that hardening off period is essential so that they're not stressed by everything when you transplant them, but are like, yeah, I know what to do. And now I just grow some roots. This is going to be great. So that hardening off period is especially important with plants that are cold hardy that you're planting out before last frost. Because even though poppies and broccoli and arugula, cold hardy lettuce, even though they're cold hardy, if they've been grown, if they've lived their entire lives in the warm coziness of your kitchen, and then all of a sudden they're subjected to a frost, they're going to die. They need to be remembered, just like I need to remember things incessantly to be a good person. These plants need to be remembered to the cold so that they can lean into that genetic capacity and that resilience that is their birthright that they've been evolving millions of years to embody. But if they don't have that hardening off period, they just die. And so critically, you can put them outside, and for the first 3 days, they can experience all kinds of temperature shifts, but you don't want them to get frosted. So if it's going to be even close to 35, even upper 30s, they're going to be fine, but less than upper 30s, bring them inside over the night, and then bring them outside the next day. And so the first 3 nights, you don't want them to get frosted. Otherwise, they can probably die. But if those first 3 nights are cold in the 40s, then by the time night 4 comes along and beyond, it can frost, it can snow. Snow can begin to accumulate, and they won't grow as quickly, but they won't die. So I'm thrilled that you asked, Jill. Plants are such incredible teachers, and you are what you eat, you are what you sow. And thank you for sowing such resilience. And Bonnie says, good morning. Thank you, Petra, for all of your generosity. Thank you, Bonnie. And thank you for the seeds and their extraordinary generosity. Thank you for countless humans that have taught me so much, and countless humans that have kept these seeds and shared and saved them and let them save us over the millennia. Thank you for the extraordinary generosity that is millennia in the making that we get to partake in and pay forward as well. And Audrey says, how much sun do poppies need a day? So great question. They can survive with surprisingly little light. They can survive in some partial shade. So like think 5-6 hours of direct light, they're going to be fine. They won't blossom as abundantly is the thing. So you want to be sure that if you're obsessed with flowers and want them to flower abundantly, the more sunflowers get, the more blossoms you're going to get. So here's a generalization. Leaves, not a generalization first. Leaves photosynthesize. They create their own energy, their own sugars from the sunlight. It's pure alchemy. It's magic. So that's the that's the nonfiction part. So leaves are solar arrays. So here's the generalization. In general, leaves grow better in partial sun compared to flowering and fruiting growth. So that's why hostas do so well in shade, right? And also, if you have partial sun, if you have in shade, grow lots of lettuce. It's going to be great. Parsley, one of my favorite foliage plants of all time. Basil, kale, think leafy plants. They're going to be more abundant in that partial shade where there isn't as much sun because they're just growing their own solar arrays. Flowering and fruiting plants, by contrast, are going to not flower and fruit as abundantly because they don't have as much energy in that context. So there's a fun generalization for you. And thank you for making the Seed Starting Academy and all these other resources accessible for all. I'm so grateful to share it with you, Kristen, and with us all. And thank you for leaning in. I wish everyone knew they had access to this. And thank you for spreading the word in whatever way brings you joy. It's such a joy to share this joy. And thank you for growing along with us. And oh my gosh, so many beautiful people. Happy spring equinox, Petra. We love you and all that you do. Thank you, Jason, and happy spring equinox. Equal right back at you. It just makes this is like, I never thought about it this way until this moment. I want to send you equal and opposite reciprocity of this day in the same way that the light and the darkness is equal on this day as well. Sending you all the reciprocal love and growth capacity. And ordered the calendar this week. I'm excited. I can't wait to receive it. And I can't wait to share this beautiful calendar with you, Jill. Enjoy. I love when people send us pictures of how they are filling it up with all kinds of notes. It brings me such joy. Oh, and take a look. Lots of people have been asking about when to transplant, when to direct sow, what should be direct sown versus transplant, and we'll talk a lot more about that soon. But check it out. In the calendar, you'll see at the very beginning, we have a whole direct sow chart and transplant chart all set up for you, and we wanted to make it relevant beyond just, we're here in Zone 5. Sending love from the Western New York Finger Lakes of Zone 5. And we wanted to make it relevant for well beyond Zone 5. So instead of our dates and times, we have it organized by weeks before, after final frost. So that way, no matter where you find yourself, and yes, that final frost is totally a range. It's not a date, it's a range. So we can have our final frost anywhere from mid-May, honestly, to early June. But knowing those dates, and then you have, these are really relevant for no matter where you find yourself. And even though this costs money on our website, and if you want those transplant charts, check it out. We have our Rise and Shine, Starting Seeds with Ease. This is a 40-page ebook that I wrote a few years ago, and it's awesome. Our new edition just came out, and we just got it hot off the presses. It's awesome. It's beautiful. And you can get the paper spiral-bound version on our website as well. And it has the direct sow, the transplant charts. It has so much more. But you can also get this as a free download on our website, fruitionseeds.com. Just opt into the newsletter. You'll see the opt-in down lower on the scrolling down our homepage. And you'll find it on our Learn site as well. It's peppered all over because you can download the free PDF. Oh, can you hear the killdeer? Yes. You can download the free PDF that's totally printer friendly. And granted, the printer friendly version isn't the full color version so that it's printer friendly, but it's an awesome, totally free resource as well. Happy spring, the killdeer sang. We sing it straight back to you, friends. So yes, love to share all of these things with you. And does the soil need to be workable to a certain depth before planting the poppy seeds? Awesome question. So yes, so here I'm about to share actually next week, hopefully in our live Q&A, I'll be doing a live demonstration. You'll find the live demonstration, or not the live, but the recorded demonstration in our Seed Starting Academy. But basically you put a shovel into the soil 6 inches down. You want to create a little ball of soil with your hands and then drop it from waist height to the ground. And if it scatters into 1,000 pieces, your soil is well drained enough to be sowing. If it doesn't break into 1,000 pieces and you still have a ball on the ground, your soil is not well drained enough and your poppies will likely asphyxiate. They'll likely drown. And even though, poppies, all seeds need a certain amount of air in the soil, because even though they don't need a lot of air, they need just a little bit of airflow, and that is so essential. So if they're kind of in moist soil or soupy soil, they're just going to rot. So yes, you want to make sure that your soil is just well drained enough for everything, not just poppies. So a few keys there. That little trick is one of my favorites of all time. Sure signs of spring. And Barbara says, I received my Dahlia tubers last week. I put them in the fridge. How much water will they need when I check on them? Moist or not? Not moist at all. That amount of moisture that they came in, and they just leave them just as is. So here's a little thing about dahlias. They are very prone, and ginger too. A lot of rhizomes and tubers are very prone to rot, to mold, to bacterial infections and fungal infections when they're breaking their dormancy. And so erring on the side of dry is always better than more moist. So even though they'll be on the drier side in the fridge, that is definitely ideal. So thanks so much for asking, and I'm so excited for you to be surrounded by glorious dahlia abundance. And Alyssa says, happy spring! Can't wait to come to the store soon! Oh my gosh, I can't wait. So next weekend we actually open, and we're open. Our Fruition Garden store is open the final weekend of March all the way through the final weekend of May, just on weekends, just between 10 and 2, and wear a mask. Be prepared to say hello from a glorious distance. And we have a wonderful semi-outdoor setup so that it's very COVID safe, and I can't wait to see and welcome you all. We'll have seeds, of course. We'll also have ginger. We will have all kinds of transplants. Late April into May, we'll have thousands of gorgeous tomatoes and so much more to share with you, friends. So yes, and you'll find all of those details on our website, fruitionseeds.com. And Jill says, do you plan to attend any garden shows this year? Philadelphia, for example, will be outdoors. We are not planning on being at the Philadelphia Flower Show, alas. I can't wait to see you all again one day. But no, although we are having our Fruition Garden store here at the farm, we're confident that we can all be much more spaced apart and just be more respectful, responsible in a COVID context, and we're just not wanting to take any other risks. But thank you for asking and sending love in the meantime, and glad we can be together in these wild ways through the wildest of technologies. And Alyssa says, your calendar is a game changer for me. I'm so glad you're enjoying it, Alyssa. I love putting all kinds of things I want to celebrate and remember on it. And I can't wait to see how you are enjoying it across the seasons as well. And Susie asks, what weekends times will you be open for picking up transplants? So yeah, transplants will be maybe end of April, certainly by May. That'll be every weekend, Saturday and Sunday between 10 and 2. On Memorial Day weekend, we'll also be open on Friday. And check out on all the details are on our website, and stay tuned because I'm like, stay tuned with a phone. I guess you might be on your phone on Facebook, on Instagram. So stay tuned. Child of the 80s. Stay tuned on social media. I'll be crowing about what transplants we have when, and they'll all be first come, first served rather than pre-order this year. And I just ordered my seeds yesterday, says Derek. Hooray! Can't wait to send them to you, my friend. And Kendall says, my ginger arrived. Thank you, Petra. Thank you, Melissa, Amanda. Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you. Oh my gosh, there are so many. There are 9 of us full-time at Fruition Seeds. I could not do this alone. And thank you to our incredible team of phenomenal humans making all of these things possible, that I can stand here in the sunshine smiling and sharing so much love with you and joy. and knowledge and learning so much from you too. So thank you, and thank you to our huge, fabulous crew here. And Tracy says, I put my dahlias in my basement. Is that okay? You want to put them in the coldest place that you have that's not freezing. So your fridge is probably colder than your basement. Your fridge will be so much better. And take a look at them. If they're starting to sprout, just put them in moist potting mix indoors, get them started. It's really stressful for them to start to sprout but not have actual soil to grow in or light to be photosynthesizing. So yeah, I think your fridge will probably be better than your basement. And I'm so glad you asked. And happy spring equinox, indeed. Looking forward to planting a field of wildflowers, thinking cosmos and other flowers that will seed year after year. Do you sell a bulk mix that would help create fields like this? You know, we don't sell massive quantities of anything because we're growing them here on our farm in relatively small quantities. I mean, we grow 6 acres of seed, which is millions of seeds. But as far as like selling you pounds of seeds, you'll be better served going to, honestly, Johnny's and High Mowing are my go-tos. Also check out Frank Morton and Wild Garden Seed. He's in Oregon and an incredible mentor and someone I just respect so much. And he has larger quantities of lots of flower seeds, that many of which will reseed year after year. And Sonia asks, and no worries, not a poppy comment, perfect. Just wanted to say our ginger is peeking, through under the grow lights, yes! We lost some in storage, but have 4 healthy plants in shallow trays, and I'm so excited. How soon can I give them the Fruition Seeds fertilizer? Oh my gosh, do I have some? Yes! So honestly, if you got the ginger fertilizer, wait until you transplant to be sharing that fertilizer. In the meantime, you can be spraying them with our fish and kelp emulsion. Every week we foliar feed them with our fish and kelp emulsion. And with any transplants that are over 5 weeks old, every week they get just a little bit. And a little goes a long way. 1 ounce of our fish emulsion dilutes into 1 gallon of water. And you only want to make as much as you need for that moment. It stores a long time in its concentrated form as we share it with you. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that's fish emulsion. That's stinky stuff. That means it's the good stuff. So you only want to make, as soon as you dilute it, it doesn't store as long. So only make as much as you need for your transplants for that moment. And so that's how we feed our ginger, our tomatoes, our peppers, eggplants, right then and there in their transplant form. And then when we plant them out, that's when we go for our ginger fertilizer, which is both short and long-term release for it, that has lots of extra calcium and potassium that really helps rhizome development, encourages rhizome growth more than leafy growth. So honestly, our ginger fertilizer we also use it for carrots and beets. And so if you have extra or just want to dial in those crops, that this is a perfect way to feed and deeply nourish your soil as well as those root crops. So glad you asked, my friend. I'm so glad your ginger is looking so good. Soaking my sweet peas, says Kristen, to plant today. Woohoo! Zone 6, perfect timing. Can you direct sow now, right? Yes, absolutely. Sweet peas and peas are perfect. And I'm so glad that you're soaking them. And in case you didn't know, oh my gosh, here's a little tip on sweet peas. You want to soak them just like peas and get them it'll help them germinate that much more quickly. But here's the thing. Sweet peas are not nearly as co-evolved as adapted to life with humans. They're a little more wild, less domesticated. Although I think we're really domesticating ourselves more than these plants. True stories from Petra. But I digress. With peas, they will all just germinate beautifully. Their seed coats are much more thin. They're going to imbibe water, plant them. You'll see with your sweet peas that maybe 2/3 of them will imbibe water, will swell overnight, but there will be a percentage of them, generally it's 1/4 to 1/3 of them, don't imbibe water. And so it's really easy to tell which ones are this size still and which ones are that size. So the ones that don't imbibe water, go ahead and nick that seed coat. And I literally just take a nail clipper and just ever so slightly, if you get into the endosperm, the actual inner life of the seed, you'll be destroying the seed. So you just want to be careful and nick that outermost coating, the seed coat itself. And then once you've physically broken it, then it will imbibe water and swell and grow. So again, classic sweet peas you have to check out, because if they don't swell, you have to encourage them and break that seed coat. But whether it's shell, snapping, snow peas, they're going to imbibe water just fine, and you don't need to worry about that extra step. So yeah, if your soil, it's not about timing so much as your soil texture. So you want to make sure that you're not planting into soil soup, as long as your soil is well drained enough. And that key here, and I'll do a demonstration of this next week, we send a shovel down into our soil, and 6 inches beneath the ground we make a little, between like a golf ball and a tennis ball size, and doesn't have to be exact, but a ball of soil. And then you drop it from your waist height, not like throw it, but like just drop it. And if it scatters into 1,000 pieces, then your soil is well drained enough to sow seeds and they won't rot. And if it doesn't fall into a ball, if it still remains a ball, then your soil is not well drained enough, and just hold off sowing seeds, because they'll be more susceptible to rot in that context. So it's less about timing, more about soil texture. And I think we're really close to being able to plant them, so I imagine you in Zone 6 can. But go out with your shovel and let us know. And Bonnie asks, what have you started in your greenhouse? Great question. We have our ginger and we have our onions. We also have our capsicum chinense peppers. So let's talk really quick. Latin lesson. So peppers are in the capsicum genus. And there's several different species of peppers that we can grow here, even in our short seasons in Zone 5. Generally, peppers are capsicum annum, whether it's a jalapeno or an ancho poblano or a bell pepper, most peppers that we grow are capsicum annum. And you can see on the back of all of our packets, and you'll see on our website too, there's the Latin name, the genus species for all of those plants. You'll see that some of our peppers, specifically our ají dulce and also our habanada, our capsicum chinense. And so since they're that same genus, awesome, but different species, they actually want even warmer temperatures to germinate and still take longer to germinate, and just generally don't have the same vigor as seedlings as capsicum annum. And so we start our capsicum chinense peppers now. About 2 weeks ahead of our capsicum annum peppers. So there you have it. That's all. We haven't started any of our tomatoes, any of our other peppers, any of our eggplants. That'll be in the beginning of April, and we'll crow about it. You'll hear about it. And thank you for asking. And Jean says, hope to see you in Philadelphia next year. This is where we first learned about fruition seeds. Oh, Jean, that's so special. I cannot wait to see you again. I cannot wait to be at the Philadelphia Flower Show again. And I can't wait to just be together with people again. I'm not too picky anywhere, anyhow, anyway. And I look so forward to that day. And Teresa says, will you have tomatillo starts this year to pick up? We will. Lots of tomatillos for you, friends. Keep in mind, tomatillos, you need at least 2. They don't self-pollinate, so you need at least 2 tomatillos. And Ellen says, I'm in Zone 5B. What should I be doing in the garden to prepare? Oh my gosh. Well, shameless plug, and I don't want to not answer your question, but dive into our free Seed Starting Academy, and there we have tons of videos setting you up for all kinds of success. But things to be preparing in your garden now: get a soil test. If you haven't already tested your soil, go ahead and test your soil. And also feed your soil, whether it's incorporating compost. We have compost on our website right now from our dear friend John. It's beautiful. But there's lots of other ways to find compost and other kinds of fertilizers, but just make sure to not be working it into your soil until you can actually work your soil. So that shovel 6 inches down, make a little ball, drop that ball from your waist. If that ball doesn't scatter into 1,000 pieces, it's too early to be working your soil, to incorporating fertility. So those are just a few things to keep in mind. And maybe I'll make a little checklist that sounds really fun so that we all can keep these marvelous things in our minds. And what do we need to add to soil for sweet peas? Honestly, not much. If you get a soil test to make sure that your soil is a good pH and has just adequate nutrients for plants in general, but otherwise sweet peas are not too picky, which is the great news. And I know you mentioned it before, something to get the nitrogen going. Oh, or maybe we're talking about inoculum, maybe. So we don't share inoculum, but you can easily find bean and pea legume inoculant. And because, oh my gosh, it's so fun. Let me just go on for just a moment. This is one of my favorite subjects. Beans, peas, even legumes, like all legumes, like black locust trees are legumes, and all legumes form relationships with beautiful bacteria where they have this incredible symbiosis happening where the plants, whether they're peas or trees, these legumes are giving the carbon, the sugars that they're generating from the sun to the bacteria, and the bacteria in exchange are creating biologically available nitrogen from atmospheric nitrogen. Insane. And this is millions of years old. So much so that this symbiosis, it's not like when you dig up a pea or your bean plant this summer, take a look and you'll see these kind of nodules coming off the sides of your roots, and that is the nitrogen fixing bacteria, not adjacent to the roots, but they literally cohabitate. Like the mitochondrial DNA of this bacteria is in the same cell wall as the bean. They're that integrated. They trust each other that much. They depend on each other that much. They've evolved together in this mutual way and so extraordinarily. Anyway, it's amazing. So these, oh my gosh, there is a redwing. I mean, there's lots of red-winged blackbirds. There's a red-tailed hawk circling. Perhaps it'll come around. Watch it behind me. Perhaps it'll be there in a minute. But so with this inoculum, these nitrogen-fixing bacteria are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're on every continent. They're even in Antarctica, just waiting. So they're everywhere. So you generally don't need to inoculate, but you can buy inoculum, and so that you be sure that as you're planting your beans and peas, that suddenly there is these bacteria are there ready to cohabitate and create these beautiful mutualistic symbioses with your legumes. So you generally don't have to, but especially if you're building brand new raised beds or your first time garden and just want to make sure that they're there, go ahead and get some. Once you put that inoculant in the soil, you've inoculated your soil. Those bacteria will be there blessedly long beyond, honestly, your lifetime and the lifetime of our species. They're going to just be there. So you only need to do it once. So perhaps that's what you're talking about. If not, feel free to ask me a further clarifying question. But thank you for indulging. There's so much more to share about this brilliant mutualism. It's one of my favorite things to remember. So thank you. And thanks for the sweet pea tips. Maybe I'll have better luck this year by following them. Yes, best of luck. And keep in mind too, another common mistake with sweet peas is just not thinning them enough. And if they're too close, they're overcrowded, and they'll have way more foliage than they will flowers. So let's take just a few more questions. And I am so delighted to share this Q&A. And do you say you're waiting until April to do tomato seeds? Yes, here in Zone 5, we hold off until 8 weeks before final frost to plant our tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. So that means we hold off until early April to grow our tomato seeds. So granted, final frost can sometimes be around Memorial Day, so it can be even mid-May, but it can be early June, and we just don't know, especially in early April, late March. It's really too soon to say. So we err on the side of the frost date being later than we might anticipate. So that way, because here's the thing, younger, unstressed transplants are more abundant, more healthy, and thus more abundant every time compared to older, more stressed transplants. So it's very easy and it's counterintuitive almost, because in a short season, we're like, wait a minute, super short season here. We've got to get going really early and get nice big transplants so that they're going to flower sooner. But it's counterintuitive. And so it's really important to not start them too early, because older, more stressed transplants just aren't going to be as healthy, aren't as going to be as abundant. So yeah, kind of wild. So I'm delighted to share one final question, and then I'm delighted to see you next week for our live Q&A. And Nancy asked, what is the best way to test the soil? Oh my gosh, check it out. We have a whole blog called Soil Testing Made Simple. It's really easy and wonderful and fun, and just like anything, it's hard until you do it once or twice. And so our blog sets you up for success. Just go ahead and Google Fruition Seeds Soil Testing Blog, and it'll come right up and set you up. So glad you asked, and you'll find that and so much more in our free Seed Starting Academy. I hope you'll dig in and join and share it with your friends. We made them to be shared as widely as possible, just like these seeds. And also join us on Wednesday. Wednesday, we have our next Sowing and Growing series. Our webinar series continues with potatoes, and our potatoes. We have 8 varieties of organic seed potatoes. They will be available on Wednesday. Can't wait to share them all with you. And we will be sharing them in April here at our farm store as well, which is opening next weekend, the final weekend of March, all the way through the final weekend of May, just on weekends between 10 and 2. Find all the details on our website, fruitionseeds.com. And I love to begin as we end, love to end as we begin all of our live Q&As with a song, story, poem, with something to ground us in our time together. And today, in honor of the equinox, just silence, listening to the world around us, because it's not so silent. Listen for the killdeer, listen for the blackbirds, for the bluebirds singing their sing-songs and their spring songs, and the cardinals. So let's just share a moment of delicious silence. Thank you, friends. Sending love from our thawing gardens to yours. And happy spring.